Hello, my friends. We are going to be doing a first impression and painting with the Arrtx Acrylic Marker set. These are the brush end markers. They are single-ended, and I have high hopes that these are not going to dry out on me on the first go. I have a problem with acrylic markers. They tend to dry up almost instantly on me, and I do cap them, really. So let's get in here and see what this looks like, because I, at this point, don't have a clue. I am having to voice over this video because I did all of my talking, narrated the whole thing as I was going, and the microphone was too far away. So, nice box. This is a cardboard, chipboard type box, but it's nice and sturdy. I think the pens will store very nicely in this box. I want to keep them flat so that they, don't dry out the tips. It feels really good in my hand. It's a white plastic barrel with the writing just printed very cleanly in black ink. And I am going to, the colors just, there's grays, there's greens, there's a couple blues, there's a couple purples. Even though it shows pink on the back, there's no real pink. They're all kind of corally, and there's only one red, and it's a very warm red. So it's going to be interesting to make a piece of art. But part of my small nature art challenge, and that's hashtag small nature art challenge or small art challenge 2022, anything smaller than 4 inches by 4 inches on any surface with any medium. I am going to go in with the paints directly on the surface. I don't want to waste the pen just coloring in a background. So I am using the Turner Acrylic Gouache on the background and just putting it straight on. The thing you have to remember when you're doing something like this is you have to clean your brush frequently. And especially when you're going to the tube and grabbing paint straight out of the tube like this. Yeah, make sure your brush is clean. But I needed this really soft kind of green with a purple flower background. You can see the reference right there. The reference is from Unsplash, and the link is down below in the more information box, as are all of the links for any of the materials I use in this video. I just grabbed a General's charcoal pencil to get this little butterfly drawn in. I like to have a reference when I'm doing things like this, just to make sure that I get it kind of correct. I don't become a slave to the reference picture, but it's nice to have it, and to get the proportions of things. I am going to just draw lots of different lines on here. The charcoal pencil is so cool because you can kind of brush it off on a dried surface. This background is completely dry. Make sure that it's a dry surface. Otherwise, your charcoal pencil, your chalk, will grab into the wet paint, and that won't be as satisfactory for you. At least it isn't for me. I am just laying in rough shapes. I don't have to have the perfect flower head here. I kind of go a little more detail-y than I even need to, putting these little circles in. I love having a background that's so out of focus and putting in the same colors that are going to be going into the flowers, just because it, shortcuts, right? We all need shortcuts. I won't be narrating the entire time, guys, so don't worry. But I am going to get this drawn on And then we're going to start going in with the brush markers. So I grabbed out a handful of colors I thought would make this painting easier to do. One thing I want you to know, you could do this painting with any materials that you've got. If you've got gouache, if you've got acrylics, you could even do this with watercolor. It's just a little bit different order that you put the paints down. But I'm going to go in with these pens and check out, see how opaque they are or transparent they are. I want to see, if the colors will blend with each other, or if they are very, once you put it down, it stays and it is what it is. I, really have not played with this. Is the first time I've put this onto a surface. And I'm noticing that this pink is a little bit more corally than I really want, but the colors are what the colors are in the box. Something that I learned, because I didn't know this, the CE that is on a lot of the art materials that are coming from Europe or China if the CE is on it, that means that it's got the European stamp of approval for safety, for materials, and for toys. So it's something that is kind of like the ASTMD here in the United States. They have the CE over in Europe. The tips on these pens seem to be a fiber tip, so I think they're going to hold up for a little while. They're not foam. They don't feel like they're going to tear up and disintegrate on me. That's nice. The colors are very opaque. They do, at least the colors I've used so far, they cover what's underneath. Now, I anticipate white and yellow not being as opaque, but there's a certain amount of stuff that you figure out. I am using this dark purple now and going around and kind of getting general shapes of flowers. The flowers on this little flower head are just your standard little 5 petals around a center. Not anything really hard or tricky about these. So I'm just going to put this little bit into fast forward and we'll move on to the next section. So now I'm going in with, I thought this was a medium kind of purple color. It's very pale purple color, very pale, but it is opaque and a lot of white to it. I'm just going to fill in these flowers. It takes me a couple minutes to do the flowers. The whole painting took me about 50 minutes. And I'm going to get this down to around half an hour, 25 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and zip through. All I'm doing is coloring in these flowers with just a pale purple. By putting in that dark purple outline underneath that gave me the shape of my flowers, I am able to use that as my shadow, and then I'm working these other colors over the top. They're all lighter colors, so they're going to come forward a little bit more. I'm going to be putting pink and purple and white and just going back and forth on these colors. until it looks like what I want it to look like. I'm going to try and keep the lightest, brightest towards the left-hand top of these flowers. But, you know, as you go through, sometimes your colors shift. You don't know what's going to happen. I'm really enjoying using these pens, though. Oh, and I don't think I said it at the beginning. I didn't get sent this. I bought these paints myself. They are, so this is totally my own opinions. Nobody's paying me to say anything. And yeah, I was curious. Remember that the reference is down below in the more information. That's what I'm pointing about over there. All right, let's keep going. Oh well. So I have to go back in and put my shadows in the flowers here with that dark purple again. These paints really are opaque, and that's kind of neat because you can layer back and forth. The other thing that I really enjoyed about these is that they are matte. They are not shiny, but they are opaque. There's no smell, and they flow very nicely over the top of paint that was already there. They do not mix. They do not reactivate. When you put it down, it's down. The paint does not move. You cannot blend them. So the colors are the colors. You can get a little bit of optical blending from some of the slightly less opaque colors going over a darker color. You can kind of get that sense of there being some blending, and I do use that on the butterfly in just a minute. The white is a little bit translucent, not completely, but a little bit. So you do still see some of the color that was going on underneath of it. The white is not as strong as I really would like it to be. So at the end, I will be taking some of the Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white and putting my brightest white highlights on. But this works really pretty well. I am trying to keep the light to the top. Like I said before, I am working out that I'm not going to go for pink purple flowers so much because the pink just wasn't the color I wanted it to be. I think that was the main thing with these pens. That was the only thing with these pens that really kept stopping me, was the pinks. They're too orange, they're too coral. But that's, a personal preference, and it does not take away from the beauty of those other colors. It's just they're not the color I wanted them to be. It's butterfly time. And the white is doing admirably, going over this darker background. And what I liked about it is that it was slightly translucent, just ever so slightly. And by putting the pen lines, the paint marks on in the direction of from the body out to the edge of the wing, I was able to get the idea of all of those veins and lines in the butterfly wing without really having to work hard. I like painting when you don't have to work hard. I like sharing tips like this also. I did not want to go around and completely outline it in just a hard line around with the white. I wanted it to not look like it had super hard lines. I try to work quickly here because I don't want the paint drying and causing blops, I guess. So I'm trying to keep it wet the entire time I'm working, so I'm working in small areas. You would not want to use these pens to make a big, huge painting that required a lot of smooth transitions. I could see, in small areas, and if you wanted to do something where you did a giant filled doodle painting and you were just filling in kind of color by number with these pens, oh yeah, that would be awesome. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll draw up a paint by number. More ideas, more jobs to do. I took a light purpley color to start putting in the undertones of the body. This little butterfly has kind of a furry body, so I wanted to figure out a color pattern that would give me that dark color. I'm going through and I end up trying 2 or 3 of the grays. They weren't dark enough, so I do use the black. But first off, I'm trying these different gray, purple, blue colors to see if I can get it to go in. But yeah, the black is really strong, really strong. I could see using that for doing some really good painting outlines if you were doing some cartoony type things. I'm going to take the black, and it was, oh gosh, this was scary because it was like so black, but the white is really quite opaque. it in a translucent way. It's fun. It's fun to have colors to play with. I wanted his body a little bit longer, so I just increased it using the paint. You can do that. You can do anything with these. If you like to draw and you're not real comfortable with painting, these are a great way to get started. And I could see these as being really good for painting on wood slices, on small rocks. Just make sure that your rocks are clean and smooth, and you'd be fine. I think that this would look really, these paints would work underneath of resin. So if you wanted to do your rocks and then coat them with resin, that's a good thing. Yeah, I could have left it with these lines even being really strong on the outside, but I wanted a softer look. So first I'm going to put these little legs in, and I'm not being really anatomically correct with these legs. I'm just going to put them in. So there we go. So here's a little bit more experimenting. I'm taking a fairly strong yellow and putting it right over the top. I see in the picture that the wings are quite yellow on these outside parts, or the underside part. So I put the yellow in, and I have not put the white back on top yet. I'm going to put white on. It's going to mute everything. It's going to soften it, and it's going to be probably a little less yellow than it needs to be, but it turns out really pretty. So there we go. Time to put in that cute fuzzy little body, that sort of halo of little furry filaments, I guess is what they are. I love how this turns out. The tip on this brush, even after going over the wings a couple times, and the tip has not gotten frayed or mushy. You can get very delicate fine lines if you keep a very light hand. If you're heavy-handed, you'll find out what your brush can do. But I'm trying to maintain a very light feather touch doing these little filaments. I am also going to be putting in some highlights on the tongue, which is that little line coming off of the head, and on the antennas, keeping them very delicate with just the tiniest little, just sort of skip line where you do a very light touch and you just let the brush barely touch your canvas. When I said earlier that you could paint this with anything, I still think that. Still think you can paint this particular painting with any type of medium. And remember, I do have the small art challenge, so if you want to do this on something 4x4 or less, please share it on social media. Just tag @deliberatelycreative and make sure and use the hashtag SmallArtChallenge2022 or hashtag SmallNatureArtChallenge. I'm using that sort of mauvey pink on the stems again, then going in with some white, and I'm going to make the little sort of hairs. That's right there. The paint dries almost instantly. So if you want to have a smudgy line, I'm not sure what we have to do that. But to get a blurry line, you can just go in and do tiny little dots, and it diffuses that edge. It makes it softer, makes it look like there's a little fur on it. Now, the position that I'm in right now with this is the position that I decided was the way I wanted my painting to live. So I will be signing it a little bit later in this orientation, not the orientation that the reference originally was. That sideways is the way the reference was. And I'm going to go in and put a little bit of yellow, just because yellow and purple are pretty flower colors, and these flowers are a very pale lavendery color, so the purple goes well, and the yellow goes well with the purple. It wasn't in the reference. I'm making it up, and that's okay. Well, I decided to go in and put a little bit more pink on the flowers. And that's just one of the things about being an artist, is that you can make these decisions, these choices. And even though you declare a choice at the beginning, you don't have to stick with it. You can change it. This is a lovely kind of shell pink. It has a bit of a coral undertone to it. And now I'm going to go in and just put a tiny touch of green here and there, just a little. I wanted to see how the green would go over the top of these other colors, and it goes just fine. I don't put a lot of green in because the green's in the background, but putting a little green in just made it feel like the stems might have been a little more open, and it allowed a little bit of the background to come through. I tried to put the bright highlights in with the white, and it just wasn't strong enough. So I'll go in with a brush and some of the Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white. It's a gouache. It is amazing. It looks seamless with this. It doesn't look like I added anything different. It's just more opaque of a white. And I keep it all to the top left of this particular flower. So that way, you know, I make it feel like there's a little bit more light coming in. And yeah. So I'm going to fast forward this little bit, and we'll come back in just a second. Here we are, the final picture, all done. These pens worked really well. I think that I want to play with them some more. I want to swatch them. I want to play on some wood. I want to try some glass. All of the things that acrylic is good for. The paint is matte. It does dry instantly, so that can be a con. You don't get that blending time on the canvas with this, but you can get a very pretty picture. You just have to learn the quirks of it. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, click that like button, subscribe to the channel, share the video with your friends. Go out and do something creative. Take care of yourself so you can take care of those around you. Want to see you back here again really soon. Bye-bye.